here we are, coming to you live from the LAX airport. Of course, reading House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Danny, we'll call him. Anyway, this is to show my commitment that at no point will I ever lag. Last week we did a rendition from a different book. It was A Very Bold Boy. Nobody watched that episode, so back to this book. Have a nice card, bookmark. On our way to what I thought was New York, but in fact is actually Chicago. So here we go. Exploration 3 ends up lasting almost 20 hours, relying primarily on the team's radio transmissions, interspersed with a few chirps from the high eights. Now Davison relates how Holloway, Jed, and Wax take 45 minutes to reach the spiral staircase, only to spend the next 7 hours walking it down. When at the last stop they dropped, a flare still does not illuminate sound to the bottom. Jed notes that the diameter has also increased from 200 feet to well over 500 feet. It takes them over 11 hours to return. Unlike two previous explorations, this intrusion brings them face to face with the consequences of the immensity of the place. All three men come back cold, depleted, their muscles aching, their enthusiasm gone. I have got vertigo, Jed confesses. I had to step away back from the edge and sit down. That was the first for me. Wax is more cavalier, claiming to have felt no fear, though for some reason he is more exhausted than the rest. Holloway remains the most stoic. Love that word, stoic. Keeping any doubts to himself, adding only the experience is beyond the power of any high 8 or 33mm camera. It's impossible to photograph what we saw. Even after seeing the Davisons' accomplished shots, it's hard to disagree with Holloway. The darkness recreated in a lab or television set does not begin to tell the true story. Whether chemical clots determining black or video gray approximating absence, the images still remain two-dimensional. In order to have a third dimension, depth, Q are required, which in the case of the stairway means more light. The flares, however, are barely illuminate the size of the bore. In fact, they are easily extinguished by the very thing they are supposed to expose. Only knowledge illuminates that bottomless place, disclosing the deep ultimately absent in all the tapes and stills, those strange cartes de vestes. It is unfortunate that Holloway's images cannot even be counted as approximations of the vast abrupt, where, as Reich wrote, Adir da Aden deswin Fedelen, I don't know, it's some German. I'm butchering. Holloway's assertion that the camera is an impotent within the house helps establish him, at least for a little while, as the tribe's head. No idea. Actually, Lude had a German friend named Kiri, a tall, blonde-haired beauty who spoke Chinese, Japanese, and French, drank beer by the quart, trained for triathlons when she wasn't playing competitive squash, made 6 figures a year as a corporate consultant, and loved to fuck. Don't they all? Lude took heed when I told him I needed a German translation and introduced us. As it turned out, I'd met her before, about 5 or so months ago. It had actually been a little tricky. I was leering about, pretty obliterated in the arms of drink, hours of drink actually, feeling like days of drink. when this monstrous guy loomed up in front of me, grumbling insensibly about bad behavior, something concerning too much talk with too much gestures towards her, that much of the grumble. Back then, much of the grumble. The her bit, I understood. He meant Carrie, of course, who even back then was a blonde-haired beauty, writing my name in Japanese and assigning all sorts of pretentious things to it, things that I was hoping to lead, or was it follow, elsewhere. When this prehistoric shithead, reeking of money and ignorance, interposed himself, cursing, spitting, and threatening, in fact so loud, and mean Carrie had to interpose herself, which only made the matters worse. He reached over and hit me in the forehead with the heel of his hand. Not hard, more like a shove, but a strong enough shove to push me back a few feet. Well, look at that, I remember hollering. He has an opposable thumb. The mobster wasn't amused. It didn't matter. The alcohol in me had already quickened and fled. I stood there tingling all over, a dangerous clarity returning to me. Ancient bloodlines. Oh, wait. Yeah, there you go. Face track should be enabled, dickhead. I'm going to have to edit that now later on. Okay. Well, look at that, I remember hollering. He had an opposable thumb. The monster wasn't amused. It didn't matter. The alcohol in me had already quickened and fled. I stood there tingling all over, a dangerous clarity returning to me. Ancient bloodlines colluding under what I imagine now must have been the very edginess of Mars. My fingers itching to wield into themselves, while directly beneath this sternum a hammer struck the timeless bell of war, a call to arms, though all of it still held back by that. By what? Words, I guess. Or rather, a voice, though whose I have no clue. He was twice my size, bigger and stronger. That should have mattered. For some reason it didn't. Odds were he'd rip me to pieces, and probably even try to stomp me. And yet, part of me still wanted to find out for sure. Luckily, oh, that's me.
491 will be since you're flying here, gate 54B. Please remain comfortably seated while sharing your reminders with you. As a reminder, they flew with one personal item and one big carry-on bag. Only groups 1, 2, and 3 are entitled to a big carry-on bag if it's already included in your reservation.
Here we go.
Groups 4 and 5, you hold more than one personal item. Please take this time to consolidate any secondary bags. Please check the bag size of the gate area to determine where your bag
Here we go.
will be stored. If your bag is in a personal item compartment, please proceed.
He was twice my size, bigger and stronger. That shouldn't have mattered. For some reason it didn't. Odds were he'd rip me to pieces, probably even try to stomp me. But yet part of me still wanted to find out for sure. Luckily the alcohol returned. I got wobbly and then I got scared. Lud was yelling at me. You got a death wish, turret. Oh, that's a good one, calling someone a turret. Which was the thing that scared me, because maybe I did. 5 months or so later, Lud arranged for me to meet Kylie at Union. I was late by an hour. I had an excuse. Every time I tried to open my door, my heart started racing for a bypass. I had to sit down and wait for the thump in the cam. This went on for almost 15 minutes until I finally just gave up, gritted my teeth and charged out into the night. Of course, I recognized Kylie immediately and she recognized me. She was getting ready to leave when I arrived. I apologized and begged to her to stay, making up some lame excuse about police trying to save a guy in my building who'd stuck his head in a microwave. She looked wonderful, and her voice was soft and offered me something Thumper had taken away when she hadn't called me back. She even wrote down a napkin, a GIF she'd created for me half a year ago, to reflect my name and nature. Before I could order a drink, a Jack and Coke, she took me near her boyfriend. Was out of town. She told me her boyfriend was out of town, working on some construction site in Poland, single-handedly dislodging supertankers struck in dry dock in Galsnik or something. It was a dirty job, but someone had to do it. And what's more, he wasn't going to be back for a few more weeks. Before I even took a sip of my drink, Kylie was complaining about all the people filtering in around us, and then as I finished my drink and one long gulp, she suggested we go for a drive in her new two-door BMW coupe. That sounds like fun. Sure, I said, feeling vaguely uneasy about wandering too far from where I lived, which I realized as I took a second to think about that was absolutely absurd. What the fuck was happening to me? My apartment was a dump. There's nothing there for me, not even sleep. Cat naps are fine, but for some reason, deep REM is getting more and more difficult to achieve. Definitely not a good thing. Fortunately, I was falling underneath the spell of Kylie's blue eyes, like it's sea ice, almost inhumane, reminding me again, as she herself had already pointed out, that she was alone. Gaddast man, more than half a world spinning away in the parking lot. We slipped into the bucket seats and quickly swallowed 2 tabs of ecstasy. At nearly 90 miles per hour, she zipped us up to that windy edge known as Mulholland Drive, a sinuous road running the ridge of the Santa Monica Mountains, where she then proceeded to pump her vehicle in and out of turns, sometimes dropping down to 50 miles per hour, only to immediately gun it back up to 90 again, fast, slow, sometimes a wide turn, sometimes a quick one. She preferred the tight ones, the sharp controlled jerks swinging left to right before driving back to the right, only so she could do it all over again until, after enough speed and enough wind and more distance than I had been prepared to expect, taking me to parts of this city I rarely think of and never visit, she dipped down into some slower offshoot, a lane of lightness coves, not stopping there either, but pushing further on until she finally found a secluded spot she'd been heading for all along, overlooking the city, far from anyone, pedestrians or home, and yet directly beneath the street lamp, which, as far as I could tell, was the only street lamp around for miles. Seems all the twittering lights and flooding down through the sunroof really turned her on. I can't remember the insane things I started babbling on about. I know it didn't really matter. She wasn't listening. She just yanked up on the emergency brake, dropped her seat back, and told me to lie on top of those leather pants of hers, extremely expensive leather pants. Man, this is like women in West Hollywood. Hilarious. Her mind immediately guiding mine over those soft, slightly oily folds, positioning my fingers on the shiny metal tab, small and round like a tear, then murmuring a murmur so inaudible that Even though I could feel her lips tremble against my ear. She seems far, far away. Pinch it, she said next. Which I did, lightly, until she also said, pull it, which I did, gently, parting the teeth, one at a time. Oh, a light went off. That's funny. That wrecked the mood, the light going off. Anyway. Parting the teeth one at a time, under and beneath, the longest unzipping of my life, all the way from right beneath her perfectly oval navel to the tiny tattooed, a Japanese sign, the meaning of which I never guessed, marking her lower back and not the stitch of underwear to get in the way. Whoa, this is a hot fucking. The rest, very Jezebel, though I don't underestimate the danger, which I guess really wasn't so dangerous after all. We never kissed or looked into each other's eyes. Our lips were trespassed on those inner labyrinths hidden within our ears, filled them with the private music of wicked words, hers in many languages, mine in off color of my only tongue, until as our tones shifted and our consonants spun and squealed, rattled faster, hesitated, raced harder, syllables soon melting with groans or moans, finding purchases in new words or old words or made up words, until we gathered up our heat and refused to release it, enjoying too much the communication. Enjoying too much the dark language we had suddenly stumbled upon, crave to, not a communication really, but a channeling of our rumored desires, hers for all I know gone to black forests and wolves, mine begging back to the familiar form and the great revenant mystery I still could only hear the shape of, which in spite of our separate lusts and individual cries, still continued to drive us deeper into stranger tones and mutual desire to keep the gripping and burn fueled by sound, hers screeching, mine, I didn't hear of mine, only hers, probably counterpoints mine, a high-pitched cry, when a whisper dropped unexpectedly and practically bark, a grunt, whatever, a sense anymore, and suddenly no more curves either, just a straightaway, some line crossed where every fractured sound already spoken finally compacts into one long, agonizing word, easily expeded, 100 letters, even thunder, anticipating the inevitable, letting go, when the heat is ultimately too much to bear, threatening to burn, scar, tear it all apart, yet tempting enough to hold on to for 1 second more, to extend it all, if we can, as if by getting that much closer to the heat, that much more enveloped would prove, which when we did clutch, hold, postpone, did in fact prove too much after all, seconds too much, and impossible to refuse. So blowing all of everything apart, shivers and shakes deep in her throat, 1,000 letters crashing in a long, unmodulated fall, resonating deep within my cohlea and down the collier nerve, a last fit of flurry, describing in lasting detail the shape of things already come. To bark, to bad dark language rarely survive. As quickly as they're invited, they die, unable to penetrate much, explore anything, or even contact. Terribly beautiful, but more often than not inadequate. So I guess it's no surprise what I recall now with most clarity is actually pretty odd. When Carrie dropped me off, she burped. At the time, I thought it was kind of cute, and I guess man eater did come across my mind. Then, as I opened the door, she burst into tears. All she was in that $85,000 could not exclude the little girl. She said something about Kozak man's disinterest in her, in fucking her, in even touching her, running away to Poland, and then even apologizing, blaming the drugs still roaming around in her veins, and told me to get out. Resistance to representation, however, is not one difficulty posed by those replicating chambers and corridors. As Karen discovers, the whole house defies any normal meaning of determining direction. Oh wait, she was. This book jumps all about the place. So she was still crying and drove off. This is after she told him to get out. Okay, 21 minutes. That's what it is tonight. All right, to be continued.